If we think we know it, we probably don't. And I put that out as a word of caution because mindset, is one of the newer competencies. I think many coaches at all levels are still navigating the understanding of the layers of this subcomponent of our work. It actively invites us to be open and curious.
Yeah.
It actively invites us to, as one of my professors said 35 years ago, we've got to turn ourselves inside out. We've got to look at all the things. Got to take that flashlight and look around the space.
Yeah.
What is the space that has not yet been uncovered? That is mastery. And mastery does not equal expertise. Hi, I'm Jennifer Britton, and welcome to the Coaching Mini podcast. I've been on a mission for the last 20 years to expand the coaching conversation to many. Along with my co-host, Ivana Valley, we're going to be exploring coaching as it relates to conversations, connection, and change in both personal and professional settings. Coaching Many is about creating empowering and thought-provoking spaces for conversation which strengthen relationships and enhance results. Throughout the Coaching Many podcast, we'll share tools, practices, and approaches to support you in your conversations, one dialogue at a time. So, Ivana, welcome back. I'm looking forward to jumping into today's topic around mindset, which is one of many of our coaching competencies. I know you had a great quote that you shared with me a few minutes before we started recording. Why don't you kick us off with the quote?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Jen. So the quote is by Carol S. Dweck, who really does so much work around mindset. And she shares, your intelligence is something very basic about you that you can't change very much, but you can change the way you use it.
Love
Juicy.
that. Yeah. Well, it's so interesting, right? Because I think for many coaches in the world today, they keep on learning. Ongoing learning is actually part of the coaching mindset. But at what point do we also embody it, right? I think mindset is not just the thinking, it's not just the doing, but it's the being, which we touched on so many other episodes. Like I'm thinking our Be Do Have episode recently.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, we've had so many conversations that touch about somatics and the multiple intelligences, of which mindset is one, right? How do we see the world? How do we filter the world? Powerful. So what comes to mind when you think about mindset? Because today's topic is going to be all about coaching mindset, competency number 2. What comes to mind for you when you think about coaching mindset?
I'm just thinking back to when I actually did my coach training, and I started in like 2012 in Toronto with CTI, and just like there was so much learning, but through the practice of even to be certified, like those 100 hours and whatever, it was like that approach, like, it's like, how do we integrate? How do we actually bring this to fruition, right? And so I'm just thinking, like, early in my coaching days, like, I wanted to do more training. I wanted to do more training. And maybe some of you are hearing yourselves in this, whether you are new in coaching or even as a seasoned coach. Yes, it is our competency. ICF even says we have to do so many CCEs for ongoing learning. And like you said, it's that embodiment. Like, where does the learning, where is that threshold between learning, integration, and how we actually like embody it ourselves as people, as humans, as coaches, as leaders, like all the facets of who we are.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at, the competency base, and it is about that ongoing learning, but it's also about the reflective practice, right?
Yeah.
We haven't done an episode on supervision yet. That's a big part of the world that I operate within, really, continuing to support team and group coaches on what is not just the practice, but it is the mindset. It's how are you showing up? What is, what is important to shift? What is important to reflect upon? These are really key areas. As is the other piece that lives within this competency is noticing and being sensitive to the whole component of context and culture, which is so important. As a Canadian, this is just something that is part of our oxygen.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a celebration and an acknowledgement, right? I think one of the things that this has been really important for our work as group coaches, because every group is going to be different. Every individual member within the group is going to be different. Same thing with the team, right? And we've recently wrapped up the Coaching Diverse Teams and Groups program, which is really founded on this notion of like, what are the preferences of the different people that you're coaching, and how does that adjust the way we coach? Mindset can be invisible, but I think it does show itself through the fabric of conversation. And so again, I want to really attune our listeners into thinking, mindset is not just something in our heads. It becomes visible, right? We see the perspectives, we hear the perspectives, especially when we've got many people in the room.
Yeah. And it's another concept, but it's in the listening of what is in the conversation. That we can actually be listening for the context, the different dynamics. I know doing group coaching I've done some group coaching in organizations in Italy in the English language. And I learned very quickly that as much as I was bringing some North American tools and they were thirsty for it, there was a different context as it related to them and their work. And so we have to be paying attention, like the presence of it, so we can actually either name it, clarify it. Even I love the definition that goes with this concept, and I'm just going to read it if I may, is
please
develops and maintains a mindset that is open, curious, flexible, and client-centered.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that Carol Dweck quote is really great. Like, we can have all the training, all of it. And are we actually listening and adapting to what is in the conversation so we can support the conversation, support the people who are in our groups and in our teams to explore what is there to be explored? But we have to be present to that.
Yeah, we have to be present. And, part of the competence subcomponents of the competency is that preparation. How do we prepare? How do we prepare for conversations? I think mindset is everything in a situation, especially with teams, right? Teams often have things like conflict at the edges or in the center of the conversation. It may be the thing that is taboo. And so what is our mindset around things like conflict? How is that imprinting the conversation? Have we started to explore that at all? Our relationship with fundamentals like conflict, like truth, like values.
Yeah.
Because if we haven't explored it, it's likely that it's going to show up at some layer in the work that we're doing with clients. And that's not an intelligence, right? That is a self-awareness.
Yeah. Jen, as you're saying this, what came to mind is, and it often shows up in our own training programs through Potentials Realized, but also in just general coaching conversations amongst coaches and peers, is this whole conversation around, oh, I can't do a visualization. Oh, I can't bring people in with a pause. Like, it's too woo-woo. And this whole idea around our mindsets, like whether we believe in it, whether we, whether we see the value in it, whether we are the woo woo kind of thing or in, but again, is that mindset of what's needed in this conversation and setting the context. We were talking about this in coaching diverse groups and teams, right? Is we setting the context on what is like the why behind the why we're doing that. Also, you're inviting them to also expand their mindset. But in order for them to expand their mindset, we as the coach, we as the group coach who's leading the conversation or facilitation, have to also check in with ourselves. Like, what are our biases or our blind spots that are getting in the way of our own, being with the group with these various things that can support awareness, which is fundamental in coaching, which might even provoke action, right? Which might activate accountability or even deepen goals or move goals.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, right? It is, what are we focusing on? What are we not focusing on?
Yeah.
Where are our blinders? And mindset, right, is it's I think probably sports psychologists would say it's probably 90% of the game. I'm just quoting that number, but really it's something that we may not be thinking about. We may be thinking about the technical skill, but what's the mindset behind that? Just like you said, what is the bias? What am I not considering? So there's a lot in this space. And I think I'm going to just do a little bit of a bridge to where we spend a lot of time here at Potentials Realized in creative and experiential processes. Because I think, when we're working with something like the Conversation Sparker Charms, it can connect people at multiple levels, right? It can sort of short wire our brains, the rational brain and saying, oh, I need to do it this way. Well, what if we were open and curious? What if we were accessing different ways of learning and being in the world? What then? What then might be possible? So it's not only our mindset, but it's the mindset of the clients that we're working with. And how do we cultivate spaces that are open for exploration for them? So developing a coaching mindset, right? I think there's another layer to this, and I just want to qualify this because when we do step into working with groups and teams, we are naturally building capacity within that entity, whether we realize it or not. And I think, one-on-one, as much as we're partnering, how much are we building the capacity around coaching with the people that we're working with? In groups and teams, there's a lot of available options to really build their capacity for self-coaching, peer coaching, which may be another episode that we do down the road. So mindset, think about it, right? Like, what is your mindset? Are you coming in that I am the coach? Or, as we really need to be in a group and a peer setting and a team setting, I am here to also be with you as an equal. I want to bring your questions in. I want to really invite you as client, plural, to be equal part of this conversation. That's a very different mindset.
And that's actually touching on the first point under Embodies a coaching mindset, which is acknowledging that the clients are responsible for their own choices. Yeah. So are we actually inviting them, to your point? Are we inviting their questions? Are we inviting them to drive their own bus?
Yeah.
As it relates to the topic that we ideally, in a peer group coaching stance, have co-created with them.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's interesting, right? I think as coaching cultures develop, that can be very unique to different organizations. We really see this play out, right? The clients need to be responsible for their pathway of coaching. And it may be very different than what the traditional coach thinks it could look like, because the culture within the organization has evolved.
Yeah. And Jen, I'm going to actually put this question out to you because I don't do a lot of work with organizations, especially in team coaching, but I would imagine like some of this also happens in the onboarding in those initial conversations.
Mm-hmm. In the whole
What
contracting,
in the
absolutely.
whole contracting?
Yeah, whether we call it contracting as sort of the terminology has evolved in team coaching, or still in designing this engagement, as we would say, in groups. Yeah, what is coaching in your organization right now? How does it evolve? How does it work? The cadence even of how often we're meeting, how long we're meeting for. We want to really be directed by the client and the client's experience of what's working and what's not. And we also want to be a bit of that provocateur that I talk so much about, because is coaching coaching, right? I am always amazed when I step into organizations what is considered coaching, but it might be more of a derivative of mentoring. And so how do we together really come up with a solution that's going to create the awareness, create the action, activate the mindset, right? Because competency too is about the coaching mindset. And is that part and parcel of what we're trying to do in the engagement? Are they building an active coaching culture? Are we wanting to have everyone be leader as coach, team member as coach, peer as coach? It's a very different engagement. So yes, it is about the conversation and a co-design around what are we, plural, what are you wanting to achieve here? And I think it is often that mindset piece. It's not about, let's nail our OKRs or our KPIs, our goals, but what is the mindset that we need to have in order to get there?
Yeah. Which
Rich.
really rich,
Mm-hmm.
really rich, and really even changes the approach that coaches may want to take when having these, whether you're an internal coach, whether you are an external coach coming into the organization. It's like, how are you even approaching the contracting phase, those conversations, right? Like that's also like, because I know many coaches also have strong facilitation backgrounds, strong training backgrounds. And
Consulting
so
backgrounds, right?
consulting backgrounds, yeah, like all that. And so to really do service to what, like I'm going to say, the stand that we have as coaches and wanting to bring group or team coaching into an organization, this mindset, this coaching mindset, and this invitation of that co-creation, that co-design with the organization, with the sponsor is fundamental. But I think it starts with us in terms of how we even approach this conversation so it can unfold as we want and the organization wants.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to go back to the terms you shared. It's open, it's curious, it's flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm looking at the description here, right? Reflective practice, back to that again. As we embark on the work, what is it that we are bringing into the system? How are we holding that coaching mindset of being creative, resourceful, and whole at all times? How are we trusting? It goes back to trust as well, right? Are we trusting that what needs to emerge, that the conversations that are unfolding are really the conversations that need to be had?
Totally.
I think, so many coaches, and I'm sort of extending something you just started saying, like, I think a lot of coaches want to, design, capital D. We talk a lot about design, right? And it is important to step into a group or a team coaching engagement with some notion of design, but we don't want to over engineer, right? We need to really work with those emergent spaces of what is wanting to be communicated, what is playing out in this space. And so even with the mindset of how comfortable are we in with an emergent space? How comfortable are we being in a space that is open to anything, open to any
Yeah.
possibility? How are we with the curiosity of how might this be very different than what I thought it would play out as.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as you say that, I'm thinking about the spaciousness, right? That when I hear open, obviously we're talking about that mindset, but also when you talk about over engineering, is that like that spaciousness in the group, in the conversation, to allow oxygen, to allow those things that want to emerge to come to the surface, right? So there's that. And I'm also thinking around some of those, how do we mentally and emotionally prepare, like whether it be in the design or for ourselves. So are we bringing in charms? Are we bringing in visualizations to also activate all parts of ourselves, whether it be the creative self, the logical self, the somatic self, the body knowledge? Like, what is that? Because all those different access points and spaciousness is what's going to create those things to come to the surface and to be explored.
Yeah. And that can take energy, and it
Oh,
can set
yeah.
us off. So there's a piece here as well around emotional regulation, self-management. What do we need to be at our best in these conversations? And, I think one thing I see a lot, probably more today in 2025 than even 5 years ago, is almost a mechanization of coaching. For coaches who are on the platform, they are coaching, coaching, coaching. But when do they breathe? When do they catch their breath? And while maybe, and I'm saying, well, maybe that's feasible in a one-on-one, when you're in a group, in a team context, there are so many dynamics. We need to have really created habits and practices before we step into the room with a group or a team. We can't be rushing from one conversation to another. And so, how do we ensure that we are grounded, that we are aware of the bias of the things that we are bringing into a space? Because the dynamics of a group, the dynamics of a team create their own energy. It may trigger us at a very different volume than a one-on-one conversation could. And so really part of this mindset work is also inviting all coaches to really be aware of the habits and practices so that they are able to self-regulate.
Yeah.
I
love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, there's like the awareness of the triggers. What are your triggers? What are those things that activate you, that can take you out of being present and in the conversation?
And out of being grounded too, right?
And out of being grounded. Yeah. Like I was thinking about this earlier this week, like the evolution in the conversation of nervous system. When I think emotionally regulate, I just go nervous system right away. And so we have to really like be aware of what are those things. Is it journaling? Is it breath work? Is it mindfulness? Is it just, what are those things to support us, and I think as much as we need tools, we also need awareness of what are those activators.
Yeah.
And also what are those things that maybe like those unconscious versus those conscious biases that can just bobble us. I don't think I'm saying the word right, but can cause some disbobulation. I'm making up a word.
Discombobulation.
Thank you. Living in Italy is now affecting apparently my English vocabulary. Yeah.
That's okay. But you speak to, how are we showing up, and are we discombobulated, right? Is our nervous system discombobulated? Is our sensory system discombobulated, right? Life is not a straight road. We can go through peaks and valleys, right? Ebbs and flows. But what do we need? And this, again, like mindset, right? We have to do everything ourselves? This is where perhaps a co-coaching comes in to be really, really valuable, Because even when two coaches are coming with open mindset, that might look and sound and feel a little bit different for the people, not only for us, but for the people that we're working with as well. And so I think this whole area that we've started to uncover and explore today of coaching mindset, really want to invite our listeners to be doing a little bit more reflective time on what it means to truly show up in a coaching mindset. Right. I think one of our number one questions that we've received for 20 years now, almost in group coaching essentials, has been, well, can't I bring content in? Is that showing up in a coaching mindset? Is wanting or needing to be expert a coaching mindset? What do we take away from the client's capacity? I'm going to go back to that word, capacity development, right? If we're really there to empower others, what happens if we are expert? We might be expert on process, but what about cultivating and harnessing and capturing, activating the energy of the group, the wisdom of the group, the wisdom of the team? They are the experts of their worlds.
And that requires a change of mindset. I think you're speaking to the essence of what we're talking about. And the fact that if you're embarking on the coaching many, whether it be groups or teams, as an internal coach, external, doesn't matter. Like this is key right here. It's like what has to shift in order for you to be able to step into this conversation with group and team in service of their growth, in service of their goals, in service of
their development.
Yeah.
Which, again, there's a whole tendril in this conversation that I'll just spotlight maybe for another time. What type of coaching methodologies are we even using? And given that my work continues to be very global, right? In some engagements, this is a much more explicit conversation than others. But I think very much still many, not all, but many coaching methodologies are very Western centric and may not be relevant, I'm going to say, in cultural contexts. So that's a whole other Pandora's box that I'm going to just place on the table. But I would really encourage, coaching is, and I'm going to say it explicitly, which may get us shadow banned in some spaces. Coaching is a methodology of empowerment. In today's world, that's a very interesting premise. I am just thankful that I can stand where I stand in the world with a lot of privilege in the ability to spark conversations, to allow people to dream and take action on what they want to take action on. Not everyone can. So coaching mindset, right? How are we showing up? How are we facilitating conversation?
Yeah.
What does it activate?
Yeah. And I think for me, that really involves having some discernment. Again, part of this coach embodies a coaching mindset is not necessarily knowing my limits, but also knowing when I do need to seek outside support in service of the group. And I think part of that is bringing in a co-coach, or maybe turning down an opportunity, maybe, or bringing in a supervisor to support me through this, whatever that looks like. And also part of it, which is in this number 2, is, okay, this is the situation in this case. Co-coaching is great. And what is my range? Where do I need to grow and develop? I remember in the 10 years that I've been coaching, I've really leaned into the somatic, the grounded, because I needed to ground. I needed to be more in my being. And now, 10 years into coaching, Now I'm really realizing that I need to activate that provocateur. That's my evolution, because my trusted safe harbor is fundamental, and part of that is being present and being grounded to hold space for hard emotions, hard conversations, but also how can I bring some catalytic firecracker energy in service to either go deeper, go wider, but also, have a bit of a shift of, whoa, like shift the paradigm, we'll say, shift the thinking, open the thinking. So I think that's something that we need to look at. Like, whether you've been coaching for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, where is your growth edge? And this is especially relevant when you're going into groups and teams, because in a group, in a dynamic of multiple voices, multiple faces, you're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to expand your range. And that's where I think the Activate the Superpower program has been fundamentally transformational for my growth as a coach.
Yeah.
Bringing that
and for
awareness.
so many other coaches, right?
Yeah.
Like we're now in its 4th year. And I think this is something that's really important for coaches to recognize. Even an expertise in the evolving realm of group and team coaching, everyone is an expert, yet not everyone has the same time windows, right? And I think this is where we can only see what we can only see. If we've been a coach for 3 years, we have 3 years of experience. If we've been coaching for 20 years, we have 20 years of experience. There is a range, there is an edge. This is where we cannot see what we have not yet experienced. Why supervision is so important. It's about getting ourselves out of the minutia of the work and working with others, other guides to help us see what we cannot see yet. So I really want to encourage people who are serious about doing work in this space. It can be incredibly confronting, right? I often hear that word being used. I think there is an evolution where we find this work to be confronting, but there is something beyond the confronting as well. That is not the only edge. And having been privileged really to spend not only 20 plus years as a coach, but 35 years in working with groups and teams and communities and nations, there is much more beyond what we are currently talking about in this profession. And I will continue to be the vanguard, not the pioneer, but the vanguard, because a vanguard is a different role than a pioneer. We are having conversations in the team and group coaching space at the moment that is not the last edge of this work. And so, again, wherever your edge is, it doesn't matter where it is your edge. It is going to be different than another coach's edge. It's going to be different than your client's edge. But to today's thing, our mindset needs to continue to evolve. If we think we know it, we probably don't. And I put that out as a word of caution because I'm hearing a lot of people, quote unquote, claiming their expertise in group coaching. You may have certain expertise, but what are you not seeing in claiming an expertise? What are you not aware of? What are you not open to? I'll leave it as an inquiry for listeners to really think about. The two cannot coexist in a systemic landscape. When we think we know, we probably do not know. Period.
Period. I think that's a great way to end.
I think it's a very good way to end. And mindset, is one of the newer competencies. I think many coaches at all levels are still navigating the understanding of the layers of this subcomponent of our work. It actively invites us to be open and curious. It actively invites us to, as one of my professors said 35 years ago, we've got to turn ourselves inside out. We've got to look at all the things. Got to take that flashlight and look around the space. What is the space that has not yet been uncovered? That is mastery. And mastery does not equal expertise.
Yeah. I'm hearing for me, through what you're saying is like, there's a little bit of surrendering control.
There has
to
to
be able to actually be with what is so, and support the conversation in that. And you can't do that if you're bringing in content. You can't do that if you're bringing in a loaded session and there's no room for breath, like for breathing. I'm just thinking like oxygen.
Yeah.
Oxygen.
It's a necessity for life, right? I'm a scientist. We need oxygen.
Totally.
And if we are trying to over-engineer, over-frame, over-anticipate, we're not in the moment. We're not with this evolving space that can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And lead to such brilliant moments of insight for not only the people we coach, but for the coach themselves.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference, Jen, around thinking you need to know and control versus listening to your intuition and naming it, just putting it out there, which is part of this competency.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? We didn't even touch on intuition, which
and
I think it warrants its own, like intuition warrants its own sort of episode in many ways.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you raise that one, because it's something that as a coaching supervisor, we often sort of navigate into these waters. What is intuition? And is it truly intuition, or is it my brain sort of acting like it's intuitive?
Yeah. Yeah. Lots there. Separate episode for sure.
So listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Like, what is important about this whole competency for you as a one-on-one coach, as a group coach, as a team coach? What do you need to put the spotlight on, or this flashlight on? And where do you need to, you said it earlier, where do you need to surrender? Where do you need to surrender? Where do you need to not know in showing up?
Yeah. I think you said it really beautiful. Yeah. And I think you said it really beautiful. We are not here to be experts. We're here to actually hold space through the process. Like that's our, like, so don't think you need to know minute 1 to minute 90, because you're depriving of the magic that wants to come, that wants to emerge.
And we are depriving our groups, our teams, our clients of their volition, of their ability. They are the expert.
Totally.
Not us.
No.
But yeah, it's the holding of the space. It really is. And,
holding of the space, surrendering of the ego, surrendering of control. Yeah. If that's the game you want to play, then don't frame your program. Don't position your program as a group coaching program. Frame it as something else. Nothing wrong with that, but honor the lane.
Yeah. If we are coaching, are we creating a space that is open, curious, and
flexible and client-centered?
Yeah. There you go. Well, listeners, we look forward to coming back with yet another episode. We'll probably be doing in this next season a number of competency focus areas. Also, continue to let us know what you'd like to hear from us here at the Coaching Money Podcast. Subscribe, like, and share it with a colleague. The coaching industry is now anticipated to be over 122,000, not million, coaches. That's a lot of coaching.
Wow.
So how can we be of service? All right, everyone, be well and continue to take care. Enjoy.
Ciao for now.
Bye.